Most people will tell you the MVP of Bleach is Ichigo, Aizen, or Rukia. But what if I told you they're all wrong? Because there's one character who shaped the story from the shadows, who manipulated captains, deceived Aizen, and broke our hearts without ever raising his voice. And somehow, most people still underestimate him. Today, I'm making the case for Gin Ichimaru, the real MVP of Bleach, the man who controlled the narrative of the story both on screen and off. To understand how crucial Gin is to Bleach, you need to start with his story. Not the story of betrayal or villainy, but the one about a boy who found a girl passed out in the streets and gave her food, a girl named Rangiku. From that moment on, Gin and Rangiku became inseparable, and what looked like an innocent friendship between two children of poverty became one of the most important relationships and storylines in the series. Because one day Gin sees something: Aizen holding the Hogyoku. Standing behind him are three men, the same three men he'd seen near Rangiku the day she collapsed. That's all it took, one glance. From that day forward, Gin's aspirations in life were simple: kill Aizen. Think about that for a second. This was a child. For the rest of his life, everything he did, and he did a lot, was all part of this plan to end Aizen's life. It tells us something else too. In an instant, Gin deduced correctly that the Hogyoku steals energy from those who are near it. This was what hurt Rangiku. No one told him, he figured it out, and he was right. The ability to correctly process information so quickly, based off so little, is ridiculous. But that's not even the most impressive part. Imagine the willpower it'd take to pretend to be Aizen's ally for decades, to smile, to serve, to commit atrocities for him, all for revenge there's no guarantee he could ever pull off. Oh, and while within the story he's trying to fool Aizen, outside the story, we are aware of none of this. Like Rukia, who I covered here, Gin realizes to accomplish his goal, he must become a Shinigami. Rukia did it for herself, Gin does it for Rangiku. And I don't blame him. Her tears from the day they met are forever ingrained in his psyche, and he never wants to see that again. So he will do whatever it takes to protect her smile. The longer this plays out, you realize this isn't simply a great revenge story, it's a philosophical tale. It takes a standard question like, what would you do for the people you love, and morphs that into something far more complex. There's a quote that appears in the manga, and it couldn't be more fitting. Those who claim to know what love is, liken it to ugliness. This is literal. The acts Gin does out of his love for Rangiku couldn't be uglier. So the question becomes, if you're willing to do anything for love, are you still worthy of being loved yourself? It's a question that plagues him. If the roles were reversed, would he still love her after everything she'd done? Could he accept her? Can she accept him? By the way, this is my first Gote 13 video. After rekindling my love for Bleach, I decided I need to cover these people, so make sure to check out the ones coming in the next few weeks as well. Gin and Rangiku enroll in the Shinigami Academy together, and it doesn't take long to realize Gin Ichimaru is a prodigy. Like a snake, he's cold, calculating, and efficient. This process takes him exactly where he wants to be, the 5th division, the same as Lieutenant Aizen. This is where the aforementioned ugliness really begins. Gin kills a seated officer in his own division. Not only does Aizen cover it up, he's impressed. He helps Gin fill that open position and brings him into his inner circle. From here, things only get worse. First it was murder, then it's partaking in the Soul Society's version of MK Ultra, and the list goes on and on. These crimes he partakes in span decades. To gain the trust of Aizen, he discards his own morality. Again, this is the only side we see of him for the majority of the story. We don't know his motives until later. His goal never changes, but his methods get uglier and uglier. A perfect example is his interaction with Rukia before her execution. She has resigned herself to the fact that she's going to die. Then Gin appears and says, "I can help you escape." In this moment, he gives her something she didn't even realize she still had: hope. The belief that maybe, just maybe, she'll live. Then just as quickly as he gave it to her, he snatches it away. Just kidding. And it breaks her. She screams in anguish. Not because she's going to die, but because she wanted to live. And guess what? Gin gains absolutely nothing from this. He does it because he can. Same thing with Kira. As his subordinate, he worships Gin, and Gin lets him do so, right up until he betrays the Soul Society, which crushes him. Gin slices Hiyori in half, for crying out loud. He gets in Ichigo's head like he did with Rukia too. He tells Ichigo he's not only weak physically, but mentally, and at this point, he's right. A cool little detail here is they make a point to say that Ichigo can read his opponents when he fights them. The exception to this was Gin, because he wasn't looking at him, which is a beautifully subtle tease to his true intentions. That's not the only hint we get either. Rangiku is the one who gets hold of him before he flees the Soul Society to escape with Aizen. Before he dips, he straight up says he would have liked to have been held captive longer, and he apologizes to her. It's the most human he's been in the entire series to that point. Much later, when he reunites with her, you see how hard he tries to keep the facade going. He immediately tells Aizen she's not going to be an issue and that he'll handle her. But Aizen is like, dude, I know you care about her. Don't worry, she's not a problem. The mask is slipping, so he overcompensates. He grabs Rangiku, drags her out of sight, and pretends to kill her. When they're alone, Rangiku tells him she waited for him. Here, for a moment, a crack in his persona forms. He asks why. Then he lashes out, "Why did you have to come, you nuisance?" and knocks her unconscious. I think for him, this was too much. He was clearly emotionally impacted by her arrival, and going as far as murdering her surprised even Aizen. What comes next is everything Gin's been building towards. Decades of smiling, of lying, of pretending, of studying how to counter Aizen's Zanpakuto. And now, he's finally found the perfect moment. Gin says what we've all known from the first time we saw him: "I'm a snake." Then he pierces Aizen straight through the chest, leaving a fragment of his Zanpakuto buried deep inside the man who ruined everything. Not only did Gin figure out Aizen's ability, he managed to hide his own. His blade extending, that's not the full extent of its power. It also disintegrates into poison, and how fitting is that? The self-admitted snake uses his blade, his metaphorical fangs, to release his venom. He wastes no time activating his Bankai, which is called the God-Killing Spear, and he uses it to attempt to kill a god. The blade punches a hole straight through Aizen's chest, and Gin mocks him, saying, "Hey, now you're like your experiments." But he's not done. He even removes the Hogyoku. He doesn't take it for the power though. It's to retrieve the part of Rangiku that had been taken from her. And if you think about it from start to finish, there's a really dark allegory here that fits quite well and makes the whole angle far more tragic. It's twist after twist after twist, and it's amazing. But this is Aizen we're talking about. Mr. 4D chess, Mr. Actually, I wanted you to do that. The Hogyoku, it returns to Aizen on its own. Then without hesitation, he strikes back. Think about this. Everything you have done led up to this. It's not just time and effort you've sacrificed, but morality, your sense of self. Was any of this worth it? The answer is a resounding no, because in the end, he failed. There's a sense of desperation in this moment, and he reaches out only to get his arm torn clean off before getting impaled. At death's door, we go back to the moment that started it all. A girl he loved, whose smile he wanted to protect. So of course, before he passes on, Rangiku's there at the end. He's met with relief and regret at seeing her one last time. The irony is, the man who sacrificed his life to keep Rangiku from crying, at his end, caused her to do just that. In his last moments, he sees Ichigo and feels relief. This isn't the same boy with weak resolve who'd been broken by his words. This is someone who can win, and Gin dies knowing he can leave the rest to him. So why is Gin Ichimaru the MVP of Bleach? Am I biased? Absolutely. He's part of a philosophical revenge story wrapped in conspiracy theory. All things I adore. But bias aside, when you look at Bleach's most important arc, the Soul Society, Gin is as influential as anyone. Remember, before the Aizen twist, Gin was the one who carried the weight of being the big bad for the audience. He was the snake in the grass, the one pulling strings, testing loyalties, and keeping us all on edge. In his first appearance, he's gauging Byakuya's resolve to see his sister's execution through. He's the one who meets Ichigo at the gates of the Soul Society. He could have killed Ichigo, but instead chose to let him live. And we see two different sides to him. First, ruthlessly slashing Jidanbo and attacking Ichigo, then playfully giving his iconic bye-bye like he's toying with us, which he was. Then when Aizen is murdered, who gets blamed? Gin, because he's the last person seen fighting with him. Does Gin deny it? Does he try to defend himself? No, he leans into it. He manipulates that suspicion, provokes Hitsugaya into a fight, and walks away with no consequences. It's genius level misdirection. He floats through the story like a ghost. No evidence, no answers, just doubt. Even in Waco Mundo, Gin's still maneuvering in the background, managing who fights who and keeping Aizen in check. Anytime the story has a big revelation, he's never caught off guard. He's always 2 steps ahead, and that's why whenever he appears, you're immediately on edge. You never know what he's about to do. Plus, the dude is a straight up scene stealer. Every time he's on screen, he leaves you wanting more. When Rukia sees him for the first time, she breaks into a sweat, and he's not even talking to her. That's aura, the smile, the squint, the voice, the mockery. It feels like you're being watched by a predator. People say Gin fades into the background during the middle arcs, and they're right, but that's the point. He's a snake. When you see him, you're on the edge of your seat. When you don't see him, it's because he doesn't want you to. Then in the final act of the original series, the snake strikes. His story is revealed. It's been a long con the entire time, and immediately, Gin redefines his entire role in the story. There's even a fun theory that his jab at Rukia was intended to save her and teased his own long game, but that's probably a subject for another video. Between the manipulation, his importance to the plot, stealing the show in the 2 biggest arcs, and general entertainment, I think Gin Ichimaru is Bleach's unsung MVP. Now subscribe or die.